Well, good morning. Tomisha Lovely-Allen is a self-taught artist from Louisville, Kentucky. She has been a passionate creator for as long as she can remember. She earned a full scholarship at Northern Kentucky University and graduated with a bachelor's in accounting and an associate's in business administration in 1998 and earned a certified public accountant license in 2002. So you're probably thinking, like, what is she doing on Artist Talk with LVA? Well, she is an artist. She was chosen to illustrate a historic Kentuckian woman in the Bluegrass Bold Children's Book Project, along with 35 other female artists. She's exhibited at the Arts Center of the Bluegrass in the show The Art of Being Black, Conversations and Experience, and she was a grant recipient from the Fund for the Arts in their Black Artist Grant Program, and she will be our featured artist for Louisville Visual Art at the St. James Art Show, which starts tomorrow and runs Saturday and Sunday. If you're in Louisville and you don't know what St. James is, I don't know what rock you've been hiding under, but LVA has a booth in which we bring a local artist in to have their work and feature their work and to be for sale. Also, I will just mention that she will be participating in Louisville Visual Art and Height Art Institute at the University of Louisville's Open Studio program on October 14th and the 21st, 12 to 6 p.m. So there's plenty of opportunity for you to get to know Tomisha Lovely-Allen. So hi, Tomisha.
Hello, how are you, Keith?
I'm good. So thanks for talking to me. We are doing this by Zoom so that
Yes.
it can play because Thursday morning, while this is being broadcast on WXOX, you're actually going to be down there setting up the booth with Taylor and Desmond at St. James.
Absolutely. Yep.
So we have to do this in ahead, but it's a nice way to do it too. And this way we'll also get to post the video of you. But let's start with have you, so you're at St. James. This is the thing, just so people know, we put out a call for people that have participated in our local Muse program, and you had done that. And then we select somebody from the people who asked to be considered, and we selected you. So congratulations. I've been seeing your work for a while now. I think you and I met about 5, 6 years ago.
Mhm.
You had a space in the Tim Faulkner Gallery back then when
Yeah, yeah,
they were our neighbors across the street. You had a studio over there.
yeah, I did. It's like 2016, 2017.
Yeah. So, and you are, it's interesting because, and I've talked to you about this before, you didn't go to art school. You got higher degrees of higher education, but in subjects that are traditionally thought of as to be not the strong suit of an artist, or like an artist's brain doesn't work that way. Not good with like accounting and that sort of business organizational structure. Um, but when did you first start painting?
Painting. I started painting probably I'm trying to think. Probably like 2002, 2001. I tie it kind of close to when I was pregnant with my son because that's around the time I picked up oil paints.
Hmm.
And actually, when I started working with oil paints, I did one of the workshops that you all used to do over at when you all had the space called Artopia.
Utopia in St. Matthews.
Yep, I took a 6-week workshop with Luann, and I think
Luann
Luann.
Eiler, is that her name?
Yep.
Yeah.
hmm I had already started using oil paints, but I really didn't. It was my first time really painting, period, because from childhood I just drew. I was only drawing with paper, pencil, and then maybe in high school, one of my not art teachers, but one of my teachers for one of my social studies classes had given me a set of Prismacolors, and that's all I had, And so uh, I took one of her workshops, and I was working with acrylic paint and oil paint, but I started using the oil paint while in her workshop. But yeah, so that was about that time. That was around when I started using oil paints.
So you say this is the first time you were pregnant with your first?
Yeah, my first son. Yeah, my first
Were you
child.
having insomnia or anything like that? I hear that that's not uncommon.
No, no, what happened was I I had drawn all this time, but I never had finished drawings, except for like if I had to, I always tried to turn projects for school into an art thing since I didn't take art classes. So I would do art projects in that sense. Like if it was something that was related, like I remember one time I had a project based on Henry VIII. So I made my project based on drawings of him and his wife and his family and different things that happened during that time. So it was a part of my research. But as far as besides that, I never did anything like a finished drawing. And I'm like, I want to do something that was finished and painted, but I had never really used paints. So I went and bought some acrylics and some watercolors and oils, like the little Reeves $10 sets. And watercolor, I still, it just doesn't like me yet. And acrylic was what I started with, but I was frustrated by how fast it dried. And that's, I was intimidated by the oil paint because, I didn't know how to use it. I didn't know anyone who had ever used it. And I was and plus YouTube didn't exist. So all I knew was, oh, it's dangerous. It's flammable, so, but I reluctantly jumped in and I've been there since.
Well, it can be dangerous, but it's mostly if you exercise some common sense safeguards. And I know somebody who tried to start with oil and they knew they needed turpentine, but they got like the industrial. You
Mhm.
buy turpentine in an art supply store. It's not the kind of turpentine you buy at a hardware.
Right, exactly.
So it's those kinds of things that you learn very quickly.
Yeah, yeah,
um, so I feel like what I've seen in the time that I've known you here, which again that 5 or 6 year period, I feel like I saw you doing a lot of smaller pieces, and now, of course, you're doing still some small pieces, but you do many pieces that are of a certain scale.
yeah.
Large scale. Was that Did that take a while to get to that, or were you doing large pieces right away when you really? And again, we're talking about this point where you really stepped off into the deep end of painting. Were you always doing small stuff and working up towards bigger, or were you doing bigger right away?
Nope, I was always, to me, big was 16 by 20 and 18 by 24. That was considered a large painting to me. And partly because during my season of painting, I had small children. So I didn't have a lot of time to paint. And the other thing was I would sometimes get commissions to do paintings for people. So the size of those paintings were dependent upon what size they wanted. But even then, the largest painting that I had done was like a 30 by 40. I've done like three of those in the early 2000s, like 2010, 2005. But I wanted to go larger, but I was intimidated by it because I didn't know if I had the stamina to finish.
Mhm.
And I didn't know if I had the ability to draw and paint something large. So actually, Sandra Charles, I don't, you know who Sandra Charles is. She was the one that encouraged me to step into that space, because like, plus I was thinking about how expensive it is. The canvas is really expensive. You go to
Right.
the paint, but that was when I did the Black Artist Fund grant with Fund for the Arts. That's what I submitted for. I submitted to do a project on a large scale. So I wouldn't have to think about the cost. I wouldn't have to think about the timeline. The funding would provide that for me, whether it worked or whether it failed.
Cool. It's nice. It's interesting to hear you talk about Sandra. I know Sandra too, and she seems like such an unassuming. She doesn't push on people. She's very laid back. She's a wonderful painter.
Mhm.
But it's interesting with all of that sort of humble nature, how many times people, particularly Black women artists and younger Black women artists, will tell me like Sandra Charles told me this, and like she's kind of a leader
She is.
in the
She's
community.
approachable. Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
well, and maybe that's part of it is she is so
Yeah.
approachable. She doesn't have any sort of pretense, and I think that I always wonder when somebody is having that sort of influence, do they understand? Are they intentional? Or are they just like, is she just so relatable that she just loves to talk to people about what she's done? But
Yeah.
anyway, I appreciate that you're calling her out for that. And I think she does deserve that credit.
Mm.
Um, so, last year at Open Studio Weekend, I was in your studio and you said something to me about color. Now, I think when I look at your paintings, I don't immediately think that this is anybody struggling with color. You seem to have a very good command of what you're doing. But it was interesting to me that you said, I don't have enough of an understanding of color. I want to learn more about that. And part of it is that you didn't study, you didn't go through an academic experience, you did this other academic experience. But also, I sort of attribute part of that to, in other words, so you didn't take like formal color theory and foundational classes.
Mhm.
I also attribute it to sort of a restlessness, I think, that is common with most artists. That they're never quite satisfied. They always
Mm.
grow and push, right? I was just talking to Victor Sweat today. You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
he's such a wonderful artist, and he says,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I'm still learning to paint." And I said, "Yeah, right.
Oh,
Until
I
you
love
die,
that.
right? You're always learning. That's an artist. You're always learning." So, do you feel? I feel like watching you that in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years that you took an important step. Is that sort of time to when you got that grant?
Yeah, and simultaneously, let me rewind a little bit. Around 2018, that's around the time I really started. Like that was the first time I did St. James. I did participate in their emerging artist program. Uh, I was really trying to step into the space of an artist. Like even my husband would challenge me by giving myself permission to call myself an artist. Like because I didn't have the training, in your mind, you're thinking like, well, maybe I'm not an artist, like just the term artist and was a hard thing for me to accept. But so in 2019, I did like maybe 5 or 6 art fairs and a couple art shows, and then COVID hit. And so during that time, because of the art fairs, I stayed busy with a lot of commissions that came from the art fairs, and I started applying to a lot of things, like just things that I never. I think, well, first of all, during that time, a lot of opportunities opened up for artists that I didn't know existed, like learning more about Fun for the Arts and learning more about LVA. And then you all were doing those workshops all the time on Zoom. I signed up to every single one. I'm like, I'm going to soak up all this information. But over that time, you're wanting to also, I know for myself, I wanted my art to go in a different direction. I didn't know how to do it. And so I was invited to the Art Center of Kentucky in Danville for that celebration. I mean, for the
Right.
conversations. And that was actually the first time I worked large. Those paintings were 3 by 4 feet. But it was also going simultaneously with the grant. So I had the opportunity to try large before going real large, which was 4 by 6 feet. But before then, all my paintings, if you had looked at them, they were more so literally based off photographs. So the process of the creative part was the photograph itself, like just finding, capturing moments that created to me what I thought was a mood or uh, something that needed to be captured. And then because of that, the energy from the photograph made me want to paint it. And so, but I'm wanting to move more to having a narrative, uh, navigating a background more because I usually would paint the subject and not have an environment. So when you were talking about the color theory, there's so many things that I want to do in a painting that I have to try to do, but there's a lot of push and pull in navigating that space because some of the training wasn't there. And so yeah, so like what you're saying with my art, like I'm just trying to challenge myself to do more so that I could tell a story bigger than what I was able to do before.
It's very interesting, because a lot of painters do use photographs as a reference, and sometimes there's a little bit of a tension between. I mean, as you put your finger right on it, the photograph does a lot of the work for you, you know.
Hmm.
And but it's how most people are going to start. Most people are going to start with photograph or look. That I mean, that's what I was doing in high school. I mean, that's what we do. Um, but do you find when I look at a painting, like there's two paintings, and I don't know the titles of them off the top of my head, but
Uh-huh.
one painting is of a man, a black man, and there's a group of people back behind him to the right, and there's one. It seems like they're a pair, right? And then another one is there's a woman, and there's a group of people back there, and they're both wearing shirts with messages on them.
Mhm.
So, where is that a photograph? Or are you working from a different kinds of sourcing?
Multiple sourcing. So
A series
so
of
the
photographs. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So those pieces were done for the Danville show.
Hmm.
And that was the first time I actually had to create a work based on a predetermined theme.
Hmm.
And so sorry.
It's
On
okay.
a pre Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Those were the first works I had to create on a predetermined theme. And so, and then it was COVID at the same time. So I had to pull from references. The one of the young lady, that's my daughter. We took pictures outside in the yard. She was standing on top of a paint bucket. And then I had to research imagery from, because it had to incorporate the past and the present. And so I had to research a lot of imagery that connected the idea of past and present. So the photographs of the individuals were from photos that I took, but then the environment that they were in, I had to build them up based on a lot of different references and images, based on some research, and to try to tell the story based on the predetermined theme that they gave me.
Now, did that inspire you to develop those narratives? You said you had to work with a predetermined theme. Then where did that take your mind in terms of the next work you were going to be doing in terms of developing a theme or a narrative?
Well, one of the things was like we were talking about before, in my older work, most of them didn't have a background. The background was either basic or abstracted. Uh, there wasn't a lot of information that created an environment that added to the story of the person. By doing those two paintings, it gave me a little more courage to navigate the background, to build in an environment. And also the paintings that followed remained about that size. Unless it was something for a specific thing or a commission, I kept the paintings 3 by 4 feet. So so yeah, it
When-
definitely gave me a little fuel to keep going in the direction of like playing with the world that the subject exists in.
So once you went big, you were kind of hooked.
Yeah, but I think I'm transitioning back to smaller. Like the two paintings that I had worked on just recently. One is a 30 by 40 inch,
Mhm.
and the other one is a 2 by 3 foot painting. And part of it is that I'm not as fast as some people. It takes me so long to finish a painting, and so like even like for St. James, I was hoping to have so many pieces done, but I just can't paint that fast. I would like to be able to work on some things that can get to a quicker finish, and also I sometimes fizz out when I'm getting close to the end, and I have to really push myself to finishing.
Do you just work on one painting at a time?
It depends. Like if it's for a show, and it's like for example the Danville, I'm doing another conversations exhibition with them coming up. So there will be two paintings that's part of that. I will work on them together because I like to use the same color palette so it makes them look like they belong together.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know there are some people that will work on a painting and then they'll because they work on more than one painting. If they get a little stuck or they feel like they're in the mud, they can back off and go to another piece, you
Hmm.
know. Then also, are these paintings all oil paintings that you're doing that right? You talk about
Yeah, they are all oil painting. Usually
sometimes,
if I work,
sometimes
huh?
you have to let things dry and then
Hmm. Yeah, they are oil paintings. Usually, like between a painting, like if I'm working on something big, I'll take a break and do some really small paintings. And they
Mhm.
could be acrylic, they could be watercolor, they could be oil. And that's part of my learning how to do things. Like, for example, I recently did 3 small paintings of flowers because I don't paint flowers that often, and I would like to incorporate foliage and flowers into my paintings. So it's a good practice to try to do some finished paintings of flowers. So yeah.
You mentioned earlier watercolor is not your friend, or something. You sound like that's the painting medium that maybe you're not quite as comfortable with that. Is that part of why you keep going back into it?
Yeah, I wanna learn to use I remember when I was at Tim Faulkner, There was a painting that I had done. It was a real small painting I had done. I don't know if you're familiar with this young lady. Her name is Free, but it's the lady that lives here in Louisville. She has really long dreads and locks. And I did this painting of her, and I was so proud of it. It was in watercolor, and I had sold it almost as soon as I had finished it. And I'm like, how did I do that painting? You know, like I like the way watercolor looks. Like when I see paintings done completed in watercolor, I'm always like drawn in. I like the luminescent, how the color the white comes through because of the layering. And so I'm determined to try to figure it out. So, you know, I can't help but keep coming back to it. But I think part of it is patience. Like, you know, with oil, even with oil, I can keep working on an oil painting for a long time before it's not workable and I have to let it dry. But with watercolor, you have to kind of give it space to dry in between layers.
Right. I mean, there are people that are really masters of the medium that have, I think, have learned how you'll look at a painting and it's almost like it's an oil or acrylic.
Hmm.
They've
Hmm.
learned how to develop the composition and the surface and everything in a certain way. But I always think my first thought when you say watercolor is always those paintings that look like they were done very spontaneously and very quickly and not overworked, where people know just how to place and do. That's always what I think. That's what I think most watercolors are about. And I don't know if that's about like you have to see the image more in your mind or something, or understand exactly what you're doing, because you can't keep going in and working watercolor the way you can
No,
other painting mediums.
that's true. That's true. And I think the other thing is that like I have a little bit of every single art material, probably except for spray paint and encaustic and just a few things. But I think because of not having art materials as a young person, I'm just so I just enjoy the idea of playing with art materials, even if I'm not good at it, even if I'm not going to master it. There's just something about using it and seeing what it can do, even if it's not going to go too far. And so I just enjoy I think it's part of the reason why I love having kids come to the studio and
Mhm.
doing the cultural pass, because it gives me permission to play beside them. Uh, like as if I was a student in school, you know, learning how to use different materials. So, you know, I think it's just it should be something you should be able to do whether you become proficient or not.
Right. Have you ever thought about three-dimensional stuff? I mean, are you, when you talk about wanting to play with different kinds of materials, do you play over with clay or anything like that?
I have clay too. I have like polymer clay. I have like the air dry clay. And I do sometimes, but I think it's just, I think next year I want to spend more time using art because I feel like I didn't paint very much this year. Um, I do want to make more, and that's something that I would like to do more. And I want to draw more because I know drawing is the foundation of painting, you know. So I feel like I was doing more work related to projects that had deadlines and
Yeah.
didn't spend enough time playing.
So when you mentioned commission work, do you get a lot of commission work?
I usually do, but this year, toward the beginning of the year, I was saying no to a lot of things because I had so many deadlines. But I do have a few coming up after the deadline, so the commissioners were willing to push their dates off later so that I could finish the projects that I had coming up
Do
in
people
the.
come to you more for like portrait commissions? Is that most what it is?
Yeah, usually portrait. A lot of times it's of loved ones who've passed.
Mhm.
Um, those are really fun because I get actually to have the conversation of knowing the story behind the individual and trying to, in my own way, bring life to the story of who they are and not just only the photograph.
Mhm.
Um, bring the photograph to life. But yeah, it's usually portraits. I wouldn't take a landscape. I'm not too good at land. I've done one landscape commission and the person was very kind, but those are hard. So I stick to what I know. I know the portraits.
Well, and some people really, really take to landscape work, like they love it. I mean, but it's not all artists are not everything that an artist can be.
Mhm.
I know people go, whenever I hear people say like, "Oh, you're good. You know what you ought to do is you ought to paint cars or something," and then you're like, it's
Nah.
not all interchangeable.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people that become better with certain kinds of techniques, but there are some people who are bored to tears by a landscape, and there are
Yeah.
some people that it's the really good landscape artists, I think, have a real almost spiritual connection with nature. Is why
Mm.
that's that it's not just the painting. They could almost care less if anybody sees it. It's about the act of doing it, right? I think that's what's happened with them.
Hmm.
So that's
Hmm.
something everybody's going to experience that way.
Yeah. And I do try. I mean, like I'll do now. See, that's what I'll do watercolors with is landscapes. Is like
Mhm.
if we travel, I'll do landscapes in my sketchbook
Yeah.
with watercolors, but they're just personal.
Well, but watercolor is a good travel medium too. It's
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
not hard to pop out. You just need a bottle of water.
Yeah. That's it. That's it.
So let's talk a little bit more specifically about the kind of work people will find in the booth. And by the way, St. James Fair is Friday, October 6th, Saturday, October 7th, Sunday, October 8th. And I it goes till 6 Friday and Saturday. It goes till 5, I think, on Sunday.
That's correct.
Uh, and I guess it starts at 10. Is that right?
That is correct.
Just in case people don't know. And it's free to go to the fair, and then there's just like a ton of artists, and historically not a ton of local artists,
Mm.
although which is part of the reason why we are doing what we do with our booth. Although I know our friend Sheila Fox, I
Hmm.
think, has a booth, and Saber Crockett has a booth. There's some other local people that'll be around. So I encourage people to look for those the actual Louisville-based artists. Uh,
Yes.
you are one. But talk a little bit about like what exactly will you have in there? Some original oil paintings, obviously.
Yep, I'll have some of the large pieces. I'll have prints and bookmarks, and I have some miniature paintings. They're like little on wood panels.
Mhm.
They're more they're done with acrylic paints and they're figures, but they're more impressionistic, quick paintings. And I have cards and postcards, and then I have some ornaments that I'll have along as well.
So you've put a lot of thought into sort of how to market yourself and how to put your work out there in a way that can be marketed, it seems like.
Mm. Yeah, like when I think about the diversity of the products, I just think about the different kinds of people that have come in. First of all, I think about myself. Like when I think about traveling, if we are out of town and I go into an art museum or if I go into a local boutique or something, I collect postcards. It's something small that helps me remember that experience, or it may have be a work of an artist that I admire that, the work is not collectible, so that's one thing. I love to collect bookmarks for reading. And so I think about things that I like, and those are the things that I like to create as options. The other things is I think about the audience. A lot of times I find that a lot of young people, even high schoolers, little elementary school kids, they like to collect art. And I like to make opportunities for them to have artwork accessible for them when they come into the booth and they have $3. There's a $3 item there for them that they can take home with them. And then I think about college students. College students like to do collages on their wall of small paintings and small artworks. So that's the idea of having the bookmarks, because you can, not the bookmarks, but the postcards, because they're 4 by 6 inches. They can stick them in a frame, or they can hang them on the wall, or they can ship them to a loved one. So I'm constantly thinking about how, I want people who come in to feel like they can walk away with something if they wanted to, you know.
Well, and it's smart marketing, but it's also it's as you're talking through that, I feel like what you're doing also is showing the value of collecting work to
Mhm.
somebody very young. You
Yeah.
know, it may just be a bookmark or a postcard or an ornament, but the value of having something where you've met the person who created it and you buy it, and there's a memory to that too. It's not just like, oh,
Yeah.
it's a cool image. There's also some, I would think, particularly for kids, there's like a memory that gets tied up into that. This is how collectors are. Um, I don't mean to sound like a mad scientist, but this is how we breed collectors, right? This is how we
Mhm. Mhm.
value having art in their homes.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I think about, like, I remember when I did participated in St. James the first time, which was my first time being in an art fair.
Mhm.
There were volunteers who worked with St. James. There was a young lady, she was like maybe 17, she was volunteering, and she kept coming to my booth and she would talk to me like, and she, and, oh, I really like this print you have right here, and I was like, oh yeah, what do you like about it? We would talk about it. And then like every day she came to the booth and she would talk to me, and then she would check in the booth print rack to see if the print was there, and then she'd leave, and then on the last day when she finished her volunteer shift, she came back with her money and she's like, I saved my money, I'm coming to get my print, and I was just like, wow, like I wasn't thinking that she was coming to buy it or anything like that, but the fact that it was available for her and she had, you know, when you're that young, you don't have a lot of money, and she's, taking what she has to spend on a print in my booth, in my space. That says a lot to me about, the value that my art can bring to someone else's life. So I need to be considering all those people, because I was that person at one point. There was a period of my time where I liked art, but I couldn't collect it, because it wasn't affordable to me. I couldn't, there's a lot more options now as far as being able to collect. So, that meant so much to me that, with what she had, she chose to spend it in my booth, so it means a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I work for a nonprofit, so small pieces I've are a big thing to me, or I mean, I don't have any real big work unless it's like a poster, but I do
Hmm.
have work from local artists, and a lot of times
Hmm.
I look for those small pieces.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also don't have a big wall anywhere. So I do, but it's filled with a big mirror from there's a family heirloom, so I can't get rid of that.
You can't get rid of that.
So let's talk a minute about open studios. So you've done that. Was last year the first time you had done it, or had you done it before that?
That was my first time. That was part of the reason that I wanted to get a studio. Was because I wanted to do open studio. I wanted to have a space for people to come visit.
Mhm.
And that's part of the reason that I'm in Melwood now, is to have a space for
You in
visitors.
that same spot where I
I'm
saw you?
still, yeah. Hmm.
You have a nice space. It's not tiny.
It's not, like we've
Good
been
rooms.
teaching classes, and yesterday there were some people that just walked in and said, hey, can we paint? And because I have the space, we just hung out and painted for like 2 minutes. It was Sandra and I and 3 people that walked in, and we had a blast just creating art. And I love being accessible in that way.
And Sandra Charles just happened to be there.
We were hanging out talking, and they
Wow,
came and
what a
they
lucky
said,
thing.
yeah,
Those
yeah.
people. They
Hmm.
did they know that you guys are did they know how important you guys are?
No, no. But one of them is actually really good friends with Ashley Kathy. So he was just talking about Ashley. He called her, and so she was on the phone a little bit, and then we were just talking about how awesome of an artist she is, because I just love her work and her vision, her artistic vision. But so they are familiar with artists, and they came in, and two of them didn't feel like they were creative people, and we just Sandra hadn't worked with one and I worked with the other, and they all created paintings that they were pleased to walk home with.
That's the hardest thing, that people feel like they don't know how to do things, they don't have a skill level, and that, I think there are artists of a certain skill level, like yourself and Sano Charles, and it's not that if you can get people to pick up a brush or do something, that they're necessarily going to be able to paint as well as you, maybe ever, but there's part of the reason why people do things like painting is there's an edification, just like it just feels
Exactly.
good. It's just
Yeah.
something, and I think it has a naturally therapeutic sort of element to it.
Yeah.
As long as you let go of thinking that you can't do something because it doesn't look like somebody else, or that I don't know how to draw and all this kind of stuff, but if you just sort of give yourself over to the fun of pushing paint, I mean, that is so much fun.
It is. And my whole theory behind, like, when I do classes or when I do the cultural pass or when people randomly walk in the studio and say, "Can I paint?" I specifically say, we're here to play. It's art play. And I say materials exploration. When you add the word play to it, then they don't take it seriously. And that's part of the reason why, when we do these classes or gatherings, everyone makes their own thing. So they're not comparing to anyone. This person may do a collage, and this individual over here may do a coloring sheet. Like like whatever is their level of comfort, there's enough variety of materials and enough inspiration hanging around to draw from. But you don't have to worry about looking at your neighbors and seeing, like, because it's the same thing, whether you're as good as they are, and I just say, like, if you love it, you take it home, and if not, you can throw it away. It's just fun. Your life is not dependent on this. This is just supposed to be an opportunity to have an outlet to create and play, and maybe you'll find something that you like that you'll try at home.
So that's such a wonderful attitude, and I like, was that always your attitude? I kind of feel like maybe it was. Like, I'm just
No,
gonna,
well,
or do you have to
I'm sorry.
work to get there?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I used to draw all the time, and it brought me pure joy. Like, it was my personal thing for me. And I believe that every person should have a thing for them. Like, just a thing that you do that does not require somebody else, and that does not depend on someone else's opinion. And so for me, it's my art. Like, you have a sketchbook, that's mine. Whatever I choose to put out into the public's eyes, what I choose to put out to the public eye. But art has always been my personal thing. And I believe that everyone has their own thing too. Some people love to decorate their home. Some people love to cook all these elaborate dishes. And other people are really good at pairing accessories and clothing. We all find our own niche, or just even knowing how to plan budgets and things to build wealth. Those all creative things. They're just, we all have a thing that no one else would necessarily understand, except for people who are similar in that mind's eye, but you commit to it because you love it. And that's the difference between being an artist who has been training for many years versus someone who's just saying, well, I can't draw a stick figure. It's because you just keep practicing, and the practice brings the transformation.
Do you set goals for yourself? Like, for example, like, I don't, have you had a solo exhibit?
I have not. I have not had a solo exhibit, but something I'd like to do in the future.
Okay. I mean, so that's a goal. Do you apply a time frame to it? I want to do that within X number of years, or do you just kind of roll along more organically?
I think I think about my goals as being more like business goals. So it may be, okay, I am going to try, like, this year, because of COVID, I have been very reluctant about doing art fairs because of the manpower that it requires, the energy, the time. And so by applying to those things would put me in a position to force myself to create so much work to go forward to be a part of those the show or the fair. Or I may say, like, for example, I want to do large paintings. How many do I want to do? And I may set a goal to try to do so many large paintings. But like, for example, another goal was to get a studio outside of my home so that I wanted to do the cultural pass, I wanted to do open house, and I wanted to teach, and I wanted to work large. And none of those were available to me inside my house. Like, I couldn't do those things at home. I tried to, those two paintings that you were talking about, of the woman and the man in the foreground, I painted those mostly at home, and it was a challenge because of the space. And so if I wanted to go large and work, the way I needed to, and invite people into my space, I needed to get out of my house. So those are the kind of goals I set, more like that. And then I'll apply, like, I'm going to apply for this many grants, or so I'm thinking more from a business perspective. And then the art kind of comes along with it, depending upon which things come through.
Okay. I just always wonder, because I do think there is this sort of, it does seem like being an artist does have an organic flow to it. But then
Mhm.
when we talked about, like, so your sheepskin is all about business. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
this is where the two parts of your brain are all coming together,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, because I mean, the thing is that if I was working at home, I probably would be more loosely focused on only creating art, but because I have a studio space that I'm renting, that I'm leasing, there is a cost. And so I have to think about how to fund the cost, so that I can keep that space or a different space because I'm kind of walking into that space later and it's new to me. So I want to be responsible about it, so, but no, like I know one of my goals for next year, like this year, I feel like I've been working so hard on the business side that I've not made much time for my creative side. So that part of me is like just thirsty and hungry, so I've already said that I need to focus on being more balanced for 2024 because like, each year I'm learning new things in this journey of trying to be a artist full time, on how to do it and do it in a healthy way so that I don't burn myself out and, wear myself down too quickly.
Well, let's go back to the Danville. I just want to make sure we sort of because so the St. James Fair is this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Open studio weekends are Saturday, October 14th and 21st from 12 to 6, where you can be found in Melwood at your studio, Melwood Art Center. But I don't know if you said, but the show in Danville that's going to happen, that's sort of
Yeah,
a, do you know, can you
yeah.
give us the dates or anything like that? I mean, we just want to sort of see when that's happening.
Okay, so I don't know the exact date, but it's in the actual exhibition will start in January.
Okay.
We are actually going to be meeting this month in October to actually do the conversation part because basically the way the show is set up is you listen to conversations and you build the work from the conversations, like from listening to people talk about a particular subject, and then out of that the paintings are created. So we're having the conversations, the actual physical conversations will come this month, and then I'll have a couple months to actually create the paintings. And then the exhibition will be, I believe, from January through March, if I'm not mistaken.
Are there other Louisville artists involved in this that you can say or?
I believe Lori LaRusso, maybe.
Okay.
Um, I'm sure that at some point, once we get through this part, they'll have an open call.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Well, I
and
didn't know. I
so
didn't know. I'm just trying to get some whatever information is there. But if that isn't, I don't want to. I don't want you to say anything we don't know for sure.
no, I'm kind of new to it, but I do believe like at some point they'll have an open call and bring in other artists for
Okay.
a different part of an exhibition, but it's still kind of new to me. And then
Okay.
yeah, and then there's another exhibition that I'm a part of at the Susan Morman Gallery. That's
Okay.
in November. So that painting I just recently finished. Uh, and that's going to represent like 35 artists, I believe.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's like November 14th or 15th.
All right. Great.
Yeah.
Do you know? Well, I don't know. I'm just always curious to know, like, who. Part of me just wants to know, and but I won't. I won't get you to commit to much more than that. But that's great. Susan is one of the top gallerists in town. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited. I was really working hard to try to make sure that I was able to finish that painting, because I really want to be a part of that exhibition. It's gonna seem like it's gonna be fun.
Okay.
So as I find out more information, I'll let you know.
So there's a lot coming up for Tomisha Lovely-Allen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, I'd say, you might have more things for us to address and call out than any person that I can think of. I've had people that had a couple things, but you're very busy. You're very booked. Good.
I appreciate that because sometimes I'm like, am I doing enough? But then I feel I'm doing enough. But I'm trying to figure out how, I can't say that the opportunities are not there if I'm not trying to find them. So, and I really am thankful for the arts community because a lot of times, like prior to, I know everything is time stamped with before COVID and after COVID,
Yes.
but I didn't really prior to COVID, I didn't know a lot about the art community there, but there have been some staple artists like Miss Lucille, Sandra, Barbara Tyson Mosley. There's been a few artists who have just really been pulling me into things that I didn't know existed.
Mhm.
And even now, some of the opportunities that I've had gotten is a result of someone placing my name in a space that my name wasn't known before. So, it's just, I appreciate the just the fact that someone would do that, to give me an opportunity to be in those spaces. So yeah. So I gotta keep working to make sure that I'm doing my part in that way as well.
Well, you said Miss Lucille. I always feel like that's Elmer Lucille Allen, who
Yes.
I've had her on here. I feel like maybe it's time to have her on again. I should get her in here sometime soon. Because she's a talker,
I
and
love her.
and
She
she's a
keeps me in line.
well, she's a connector though, like you
She
say.
is.
She'll say
Yeah.
name, she'll pass your name along and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, she's the elder of one of the elders of the arts community, one of the people that connect us to the past and to the future.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I just want to make sure that that people know who we were talking about. So yeah, well, I think you're doing great. It seems like.
Well, I'm just honored to be able to be in the local Muse tent this year. Because I've been wanting to get back into St. James, but I've been a little reluctant because I just was curious to see how my art would be received in that kind of space because it's been a long time. So I appreciate giving me the opportunity to use the space and to connect with people and to be able to hang out with you guys this weekend. So
I know I'm gonna man it a couple days, we broke it into like 2 hour shifts for somebody will come and sit with you. So but what we're kind of hoping is that enough people come talk to you that we just sit there and watch you do your thing.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. That's what I love about. I mean, besides the physical part of doing art fairs, I love interacting with people. That's the part that I enjoy. When young little kids come in and they're like, "Oh, ooh, what is that?" Or I remember when my children were young, I used to go to St. James every single year because that was the way I felt like I was able to create by just soaking up everyone else's art. And I
Mhm.
would go into the booths and just talk to these artists, just wear them out and not realizing because I'm just so excited to see all this art in one place, and I'm like, oh wow, like, and then here now I have the opportunity to be in the space and then people will come into my booth and then I have the opportunity to be what these artists were for me, like I remember one time there was an artist looking at my artwork. I mean, like really honestly, they were being very patient with me, but but now I get to do that. Someone will come out, well, I paint a little bit or I used to, and we'll just talk and it's cool to be able to be there and do that with other people.
Well, I'm looking forward to being a part of it and seeing you do that. So listen, thank you for taking the time to do this, and good luck with St. James this whole weekend. I think it'll be
Thank
great.
you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Uh, Tomisha Lovely-Allen, thank you.
Thank you.